let's say that it's a situation where you do want to help family. Let's say that like a medical expense came up and you do want to help family because it's something important. Then the next question is, puedes. Out of the Quiero y Puedo approach, puedes means can you. So that's great that you have the willingness, that you are doing it on your own terms, but do you actually have the financial ability to do it? Because those are two different things, right?
Hey, journeyers. Welcome to the Journey to Launch podcast. We have back on a very special guest, Gigi Gonzalez. She was actually on episode 342, but she's back again because a lot has actually changed since she was on just a few months ago. Her new book, Cultura Cash, is officially out into the world. I'm so excited to talk a bit about it. Lessons from the First Gen Mentor for Managing Finances and Cultural Expectations. That's the subtitle. And she, in the original podcast episode, did a deep dive on how she quit her corporate job and kind of became this accidental entrepreneur, and how she's teaching financial education literacy to young adults. But we are going to specifically talk about in this episode more about setting those boundaries with family and friends and navigating finances specifically as a first gen immigrant. So I'm so excited to have Gigi back on the show. Welcome, Gigi.
Thanks, Jamila. I'm honored to be invited back, and I'm so excited to dig deep into all these important topics.
Yeah, so Gigi, I do want to go back a bit just for people who maybe didn't hear that original episode. But just if you could almost give a minute elevator spiel about kind of, yeah.
Yeah, so for anybody that did not listen to that episode or is the first time hearing me, my name is Giovanna Gonzalez, but a lot of people know me as Gigi or by my TikTok name, The First Gen Mentor. I'm a former investment professional turned TikToker, financial educator, speaker, and now the author of the best-selling book, Cultura Cash.
Right. Well, I know the one thing that I always love about your work, I mean, you say it's in your name, your TikTok name and in the book subtitle, but your focus as, teaching other first gen young adults or adults how to navigate money, right? Because a lot of times we come here and our parents are, they're working hard. They're working hard to give us a start. Education is usually the focus because for them that is the key to getting out of poverty and making it. But then as the first gen and the people who maybe go to college for the first time, we are coming into money as the first in our families to do that. And so it's a lot of stress and or weight to handle. And so how do you navigate that? How do you, not only earn money, but keep it and grow it so future generations or the current generation you're in can be okay? So I'd love for you to start with what that is like, kind of calling out and helping other people feel seen in that. And then we can talk about specific tools and help for them.
Yeah, what you just described is a very common experience for any first generation professional. So the first in their family to have the opportunity to attain a college education and then to go on to work a corporate job where you have a stable salary and benefits. That's very different from what my parents had access to. My mom, I mentioned in the last episode, worked in retail, and my dad, he actually used to work a lot of random odd jobs. Like he was a cook, he was a car washer, he worked at a convenience store, he was a custodian, until eventually he settled into having his own small business. He's a solopreneur. He rents party supplies like tables, chairs, and bouncy houses. What we're able to achieve as first generation professionals is a lot more than our parents could, right? And that was always the deal from the beginning. They knew that they were coming to this country, immigrating to this country so that their children had an opportunity to have a better life. And what I didn't realize in my early 20s was that what I saw modeled at home wasn't going to help me thrive. So what I saw modeled at home was just calling, paying your bills on time and not getting evicted a success, and being able to do it again the next month, that was good enough because that's all that they had space to do, right? We were a low income family of 5, so we did not have the means to do much beyond that, like to even start thinking about investing or saving or aggressively paying off debt or anything like that. But as first generation professionals that do have that ability to build wealth, we need to acknowledge that we're into this like new money, right? We're like new money, essentially. A lot of us do have debt, so that's important too, right? That we start life in the negative with a bunch of debt, but we need to understand that we have the ability to build wealth that our family never had.
And do you think part of that, so I think I want to go back to kind of like the mindset that for our parents and family members who first embarked and like came here to maybe either they had to start all over, like being in a new country, or they came here at a young age and were starting, but maybe it's this wasn't their first language, and or like even the weather is different from what they're used to back at home. Like I think having, and what I always am amazed at is just like how much they were able to do with so little. And like whether it's like not as much technology as we have, so getting information is much easier now than when back in their day. The way they were able to budget and be resourceful, whether it's like with the susus, like in the Caribbean culture, which I know they have it in all different cultures, but you're putting money together. It's almost like the community bank, and like you kind of get payouts as people put in money. Like so, they're so resourceful, right? But there's also the scarcity aspect of it. Exactly. But then there's this like scarcity, I think, through line that I see, that it was helpful back for them and in the day, and then we kind of take that and was raised with that. But then it's like at what point is that scarcity mindset still helpful, because maybe it allows us to be more frugal and like more just resourceful, versus it starts to hinder us after a while. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the limiting beliefs I talk about in the money. And yeah, I mean, it's no surprise that we inherit this scarcity mindset, because money was scarce when we were growing up in an immigrant household. But and like you mentioned, sometimes it can be good because it can lead to those frugal habits. But sometimes it holds us back, right? Because we just think, there's no opportunity to make more. Why even bother trying to do better? This is as good as it's going to get for me, right? So it's really important, and I really encourage that with the reader, to adopt the mindset of abundance. And there's a lot of mindset work that you have to do before you get there, and that you feel deserving of being able to build wealth and have a softer life than your parents did. And in my community, there's a lot of guilt for that. I know a lot of my TikTok community members always say that they feel guilty that they have a much easier, like not as laborious job as their parents. Their parents are still like mechanics, or maybe they still work in agriculture, and they see how that's just like a very taxing job on their body. And they're like, I have the privilege to work this office job, and I feel so bad knowing that my parents still have to struggle, but again, the parents did that out of love, right? They wanting better for their children. They were the brave change makers that left everything behind to give us the opportunity to do better. So in order for us to honor that sacrifice, we have to take the torch and take it to the next level. We can't keep playing small because, I feel bad for my family. And I mean, obviously there's therapy to help cope with those guilty feelings, because those feelings are valid, but we can't let us keep us stuck, right? So that's a big focus in the beginning of the book, where it's just like, this scarcity mindset exists. It's not going to help you thrive. You need to get rid of it to be able to move forward with your money journey.
Right. Or it's just like this idea, right? Like, so a lot of like my grandmother and like my older aunts, when they first came here, they didn't have their education, so they either cleaned houses or they watch children for other, middle to wealthy families. And then now that my generation has gotten older, we are making more money, we have the ability to hire, right, like housekeepers and or like childcare in the same like regard that like what our older women in our family used to do. And I think, I don't really have like a conclusion to that statement, but I think it's just an interesting dynamic that we are in the positions to kind of hire and like have help for and resources for our family. But when our family first came here, they did that.
Yeah, I had a similar situation with my grandma recently, where she always alluded to how poor she grew up, but I never understood the severity of it. And she really opened up to me, and she told me that she didn't have my great grandma, so her mother, didn't have the ability to buy her a proper coat until she was in fifth grade. And, she didn't live somewhere like in Chicago or Boston where it's very cold, but it still would get, dip down to the 40s. And, you need something to kind of keep you warm. And she said she just had like this little cardigan that she would use to try to keep her warm until she was in fifth grade. And then I just see the progress now where I'm her granddaughter and I have this $800 Patagonia parka. I've had it for 2 years and I don't plan to replace it anytime soon. But it's just like the privilege, right? And some guilt came with that too, knowing that my grandma suffered for so long as a child and that she still remembers those feelings. But because of what she did for me, because of what my mom did for me, now I'm able to be in a position where I don't have to suffer in the cold. And not just that, but like I have a nice quality product that keeps me warm in very freezing Chicago.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is too, right? Like Gigi, I know you don't have any kids, but as a mom, right? It's like like I remember that. I know that because like I lived that experience where I saw them working in that capacity and still working in that capacity, by the way. That they still do that. A lot of my older family members. And then now having kids, like they're still one generation removed. So I'm thinking for me to realize that and see that, that helps me kind of internalize. And, I don't want to necessarily, not that I feel guilty, but at least I understand the value of hard work. And so now having kids, it's like you don't want to lose that. You don't want to like push down into them scarcity, but you want them to understand where they came from and hard work and why like they're in such a privileged position. And I think that's kind of where a lot of like my generation who has like the more privilege than the older people is teaching their kids like how to be humble and still hard workers, but not be, guilty about what they have, but still to have a work ethic and care for the community.
This comes up a lot in recent podcasts that I've done where exactly what you said, where people are like, because I was a first gen, now I'm going to be able to set my kid up for success, right? But I don't want them to lose that resilience, that grit that I had as a first generation American or that my parents had as immigrants, right? And there's ways, right, to be able to show your children the importance of money and how to be mindful with it, giving them an allowance and telling them part of it has to be for taxes, part of it's for savings, or you have to do these chores to get the allowance. You don't just get an allowance to get it. So there's strategies to do that with children and teach them the importance of money. But I don't think there's a better teacher than like life experience,
Right, right. Well, I know a big thing, just because culture is so important, like in our communities, like and just togetherness, is that we fall into, we help each other. Like usually when you come to this country, like you're usually relying on help from family members or extended family or friends to help you get on your feet. And I think that just like goes through, right? Like in our communities. And so you feel responsible for people and to help them. So I know a big part of your book is about creating boundaries. And so you are not only helping others, but not at the detriment to your own finances. Can you talk a bit about how you set those boundaries up? I know you have a framework for that now. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So, I developed this need to have a framework around building financial boundaries because this is something that was never discussed in any of the money books that I had read. And the reason for that is because these mostly white male authors didn't have family members in, let's say, Mexico, hitting them up, asking them to send them money for this or pitch into somebody's quinceañera. They just don't have that lived experience. So how could they ever write about that? But that's still something that affects my community. So I knew that I needed to give my readers some tools on how to navigate setting boundaries when necessary. So my approach is called the Quiero y Puedo approach. It's in Spanish, so quiero is I want to. So first ask yourself, do you want to provide this financial support to family? And it's important to have the willingness to want to do this on your own terms as opposed to just doing it because it's what you're supposed to do to be the good daughter, the good family member. If I learned from personal experience that when you just give because you're expected to, but you don't, your heart's not truly in it, it ends up leading to resentment. because again, it doesn't feel good when it's not something that you wanted to truly do. So I encourage my reader to first think, is this something you truly want to help family with? So for example, I recently was contacted by my family to help cover the cremation costs of our family pet, RIP, rest in power, Lola. And it wasn't much, honestly. I think they were asking for $100. It wasn't much. I had the money. And I said no. And I said no. And the reason I said no was because I didn't want to. And the reason I didn't want to isn't because I didn't love Lola or I didn't love my family. It was because Lola had been sick for a long time. And I had said it's inhumane to keep her alive. She needs to be put down. And nobody listened to me. I begged and I pleaded them. Nobody listened to me. 2 weeks later, the dog suffers this tragic death. So then now, after not listening to me or caring about my opinion or my stance on it, oh, hey, can you help us with these expenses? Absolutely not. You guys can figure it out. And that's something that 20-year-old Giovanna had a hard time doing. I was very much a people pleaser. And again, that's what you're instilled to do, to just always say yes to family. So I encourage my reader to be more bold and to think about, do you truly want to do this, or are you doing it because your arm's being twisted? So again, if for my example, I didn't want to, so I set the boundary. But let's say that it's a situation where you do want to help family. Let's say that like a medical expense came up and you do want to help family because it's something important. Then the next question is, puedes. Out of the Quiero y Puedo approach, puedes means can you. So that's great that you have the willingness, that you are doing it on your own terms, but do you actually have the financial ability to do it? Because those are two different things, right? Like if you're in a hole yourself, you're living paycheck to paycheck, you have no savings, you have no plan to pay off your debt, you're not investing for retirement. Like if you are barely getting by, you are not in a position to be providing financial support to other people as much as you want to, and nobody teaches us that in our community, so that's why it was very important for me as a financial educator as a bicultural financial educator that's Mexican and American, to allow my reader to say, it's okay to say no when you're barely scraping by, and communicate that to your family. Tell them, hey, like, I would love to help. I just do not have the money right now. Like, I'm struggling with money myself. Sometimes our family assumes that because we have these nice office jobs that we're killing it, but they don't realize that life in the US is expensive. Healthcare is expensive. Renting is expensive. All these things add up.
That's so true. And I love breaking it down like with these questions. Do you want to, and can you? Now, I feel like the can you part is easier to, well, I'll speak for myself. Like, so if I don't actually have the money, and so the point is like I can't, then it's easier to say no and be like, I can't. I literally can't. That's an easier no for me. The first question of do you want to? I feel like that can easily be manipulated by other people, or the perception, right? Like if other people are going to still like you or love you, because I might not want to, but I might not want to say I don't want to because I don't want people to not like me, and this is just me talking for anyone also listening to this. It's like, I think it's harder for people with that question because of that fear that we all, mostly the human just wants to be accepted. And so this idea of when someone says to you, well, why don't you if you can afford it? You're just like, because I don't want to. And it could be a reason, right? Like for you, it was like a boundary, like, listen, I wanted this done in this way and you guys didn't respect that or even consider it. But I just feel like that's harder for people. So how do you help walk people through that fear of not being liked by people, or people think they're mean or selfish because they say no?
I tell people to be comfortable being the black sheep in their family. I very much have been labeled as that because I have my own boundaries. And at first it was hurtful, of course, because like you said, our family is important and we want to feel accepted and loved by them. And if we end up marching to the beat of our own drum to protect ourselves, right, to really act according to our own values, we're very much shunned for that. So, it's part of being a cycle breaker. When you do things differently, your family's like, that's not how we do stuff. What is this new practice, that you're doing? So it's hard work, but I encourage my reader or my community to meet with like-minded people that are doing the same, because then you don't feel as alone. You're not the only one. So I have my black sheep friends. Her name's Violeta. The other one's Gabby. Yeah. So one is a cycle breaker in the sense that she openly talks about SA that's happened in her family, where traditionally it was a hush hush. Nobody talked about it because we don't want to disrupt the family. And she says, no, this happened to me and people are going to know, and I don't care if people hate me. Right. So it's hard. It's hard work to be a cycle breaker, but it's very important if you want to break the cycle of poverty that you've seen from your immigrant family and be able to do better with your finances. And it won't be as hard. This boundary stuff, it's really, really important when you're getting yourself on a solid financial standing. But once you are more abundant and you have paid off your debt and you do have savings, you are able to be more generous with your money because you had those boundaries back when it was important.
Right. Is there another example you maybe have in the book? I'm sure you have a lot about just someone setting, either yourself or someone else setting a boundary. Because sometimes I think we don't even know that that was a boundary that should have been set. Like we don't know that interaction was a place for us to step up or stand up for ourselves. So you have any other examples like that?
Yeah, one example that I cite in the book was when I was contacted by my grandma on my dad's side to pay for her eye surgery. They reached out to me and they said, hey, she's going to need surgery. It's going to cost $2,000. Can you pitch in $1,000? Which that's quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
And of course, I love my grandma. And of course, I wanted her to get this surgery, but I was in no financial position to do that. So what I offer my reader are just different levels that you can still show up for family and offer support that don't mean saying yes to that $1,000 ask. So, for example, hey, I'm so sorry to hear that grandma's not doing well and she's going to need the surgery. Unfortunately, I don't have the financial means to be able to contribute $1,000 towards this medical expense, but I do have $250. Does that help? Can I send that to you, via Venmo or whatever way? If you don't even have those $250, and if you're more comfortable with the loan, saying, hey, I really don't have money myself, but I can loan you $100, but I would need the money back. And again, loaning money, always knowing that you could potentially not see that money back, right? That could be the next level down. And if money really just is not there because you are barely scraping by with your own finances, there's other ways to offer support. If you live nearby, you can say, I'm so sorry that grandma's going through this. I want to help, but financially I'm in a really tight spot. But how about I spend a few days this week going to the house and maybe, cooking up a couple meals to kind of lessen the load for the family, or doing some cleaning, right? Or you can offer to do research to help them fund these expenses. So, support doesn't come in one way or another. We think that we automatically have to do what we're being asked, but there's, again, different levels to how you can show up for family.
Do you find that when you try to offer like non-monetary assistance, so even just like education or resources, like, do you find that is accepted sometimes, or even maybe you have examples from your readers or people who follow you? Because sometimes I get the sense that the person does want money, right? Like that's really the ultimate goal. And it's not like necessarily like a negative, they're trying to scam you, but the money is just more appreciated. And when you try to offer something else, that's actually met with like just, negative.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, your family is not respecting your boundaries, right? And you matter as an individual too. So I would be a little bit alarmed at that. But I understand, have you ever seen 90 Day Fiance?
Yes. Yes.
I don't know if you remember Asuelu and Kehlani, that couple.
I know their faces. I never know the names. I know the faces.
It's okay. He's from Samoa. He's from Samoa, and his mom was like, just give me the money. And they're like, we don't have money. She's like, just give me the money. Again, just very demanding. I mean, when I've donated my time, I did it a couple years ago for my mom. Her husband was very sick, and she didn't ask me for money because he is not my father. I wouldn't even call him my stepfather because she married him when I was an adult. So that was her husband, right? I have my father. And he was nice and pleasant and rest in peace, right? But yeah, at the time he was very sick in the hospital, and she kept telling me how, they're getting behind on bills, and kind of kept alluding to needing money. We've danced this dance before, so I knew that that's what she was alluding to. So I said, hey, how about I go to San Diego for a week? I'll go there. I'll clean up. I'll do some cooking. I'll drive you to the hospital so that you don't have to pay $20 in parking fees every day. And that's how I offered support during this difficult time. Would she have preferred the money? Probably. But that's not something that I felt I was aligned with, given the situation that I'm like, this person is not my family. We just weren't close. But I wanted to support my mom because I know she was spending the nights in the hospital, right? Staying with her sick husband. And that's how I did that. I got groceries. I cooked them. I cleaned out her fridge. I washed, I did their laundry. So yeah, basically a free housekeeper for a week. And that helped tremendously because, as you can imagine, when somebody's in the hospital for three months, the house is just like completely turned upside down.
Yeah, I could imagine like that. Even valuing your time and energy, that was more than probably like what you would have even could have given her monetarily.
Yeah. Oh yeah, my time's worth a lot, but yeah. I don't think I ever heard the thank you. Now that I think about it, because I just think that they would have valued more the money. But it's okay. I feel good about how I contributed to her in her time of need. I feel okay with that.
Yeah, I think a lot of this too is almost like being able to say no and have boundaries, or have people, think the wrong thing about you, or just the opposite. Like, you can literally have a reason for doing what you're doing and be standing in your truth. And there could be someone on the other end of that who has their own truth and disagrees with what you're doing, and they could be right in their own way. And I think being okay with that, like outside of money, I just think there's this like self-confidence thing and value where, forget money, it's just like that we need to develop in ourselves, to not that we are an island, but that because we do need people. We do, we are meant to like love and be loved, but to be that strong and rooted in self so that you can be okay when things don't go your way and you don't get an applause for everything you do.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, let's call it for what it is. It's people pleasing. If you're constantly acting out of misalignment with what you value and what your stance is, because you're scared of the pushback that you're going to get, or that you're going to be shunned, and you ignore your own values, your own needs, your own opinions, you're people pleasing. And I don't think that's a good quality to have. And I think it's a very common quality. For a long time, I was a people pleaser, right? So I had to learn to be this quote unquote biatch to be able to honor myself, right? Because I would forget about myself along the way because I was so worried about what my family thought and getting their approval. And that led me to nowhere. That led me to still being stuck in terrible financial situations because I never prioritized my finances. I prioritized more being accepted by them and saying yes to anything that they needed financially.
Right. And this especially happens if you're an overthinker like myself, or, my friend told me, stop thinking for other people. I don't know if we had talked about that the last time, but essentially
No.
like the person didn't even say that they were upset. Like, maybe they are, but they didn't tell you, or that's not your business because that wasn't a conversation that you've had with them. So until that is brought to you, there is no issue. And I know, again, there's a fine line, because I know we should be empathetic, but I do think there is being that other side also is helpful in terms of navigating this.
You know what I think helped me? The further I moved away from family, the easier it got. When I saw family regularly, I was very enmeshed to them. So it was harder to say no or to break tradition or be a cycle breaker. So I slowly started moving away. First, I was in San Diego. That was a 2-hour drive away. Saw them pretty regularly, probably once a month. Then I moved to Phoenix. Then I would only see them. It's a 4-hour drive to home. At that point, I would see them every 2 months. Now I'm in Chicago. They're really far away now in Mexico. And, I communicate with them regularly over the internet. But yeah, the distance the physical distance has helped. And sometimes that's important. I meet so many Latinas that they're from LA and they spent their whole life in LA and they never spread their wings because that's where they're from. That's where their family still is. And as Latinos, it's a very important value for us to value our family time, building memories with family. And there was a time, like 21-year-old Giovanna could have never imagined living this far away from my family because I was so close to them. But I have found that I have had the space to grow and thrive with that distance. And I still love my family. And I'm going to actually visit them next week. I haven't seen them since July, but I will see them next week. I'll be there for a week. But I value this distance because, like I said, it's allowed me to be my own person.
I'm wondering, I know that, you're a little bit distance-wise removed, but like when you go and now you're about to see them, is it on your mind, or do they know what you do for work, and that kind of the boundary setting and talking about how you are with them, does that impact the relationship or how they feel about things? Do they bring that up to you?
No, they don't understand. They don't know.
Oh.
They know I'm a financial educator. They know that. But I don't think they understand that I do a lot of storytelling, and this is my journey, so I'm allowed to speak on it. But it'll be interesting, because my grandma told me that my great aunt, her sister, bought a copy of the book, which I wasn't expecting any of my family to buy this book because it's not for them, right? They're not that target reader. So I wondered, this is going to be interesting because I included a lot of personal anecdotes. This is not like a typical money book where it's just like all practical and actionable. I would say it's 30% memoir and 70% practical tips. So I did a lot of storytelling to demonstrate the importance of having a budget and a spending plan for your money, the importance of having a debt payoff plan, and all these pillars that I demonstrate in the book. So yeah, there's some family members that I mention, some that I don't mention by name, but people in my family will be able to figure out who it is. So that'll be interesting, especially when those people that I mention read the book, right?
Right.
This
oh,
is
girl,
my
you're
great
brave.
aunt. I didn't even mention. It's fine. And my publisher was like, have you gotten a release from all these people? And I said, no, I haven't. And then I consulted with a lawyer, and I learned that they'd have to get a $10,000 retainer for most like defamatory lawyers or whatever they're called. So I'm like, they can't afford that. They're not going to sue me. So I'm taking a chance. But I watered it down as much as I could to make it less litigious. Let's just say that.
Yeah. But I'm sure that honesty, I think someone probably needs to read that to see also like how it applies to their life, and it is inspiring for someone. Now, I do want to talk. I want to talk a bit about your journey to writing this book and like getting it out in the world, because I think that's interesting for people who are also wanting to get their words out into the world. But first, I do want to touch upon some questions that I got, just a couple in terms of family boundaries and money. This person asks, my question is, what do you do when you and your husband have changed and you are now on the savings train and he is still happy with debt and overspending? How do you handle those changes within a marriage? And what to do if a spouse is not willing to come along the debt journey with you? What do you think, Gigi?
Yeah, this question is so relatable to me because I went through this with my husband. So I have lived experience in this area, unfortunately. It's very important to grow the same direction, right? You're married to Jamila. It's important to, let's say somebody adopts a new religion, right? And if one person is really about this religion, but the other person is an atheist, how is that going to work, right? So it is important as a couple to grow together and grow the same direction. And money is one of them, so if somebody finally has their financial awakening and they're like, wait, we have to do better with money, and your spouse or your partner is not on the same page, that can definitely cause a lot of conflict. I lived it where I'm just like, hey, I've taken the time to educate myself on money, to create a financial plan, and you're still not coming on board what's wrong? Why can't we move together and make these moves? For example, we have very different spending habits. I was very frugal. I had a 10-year-old Corolla. He valued driving like a more expensive car because it was like a status thing for him. He liked his Amazon hauls, where like I really try not to order from Amazon because I don't like Amazon. So there were just different spending habits, and our relationship did suffer because of that. I love my partner, so I said, hey, we got to do some work here, because otherwise this is not going to work long term if we cannot get on the same page. So we started small. We started first by reading this book by David Bach. I highly recommend it. It's called Smart Couples Finish Rich. Have you heard of it?
I have, yes.
Yeah, and it's really practical. It has like a workbook in it where you can do it with your partner, and basically it's about goal setting, because that's where the difference is. You're not sharing the same goals at that time, and that's why your partner isn't as motivated as you are to tackle their finances. So that's how we first address this issue in our relationship. It still wasn't getting us on the same page. It helped a little bit. So I said, hey, we got to go to couples counseling. There's something here. And, if we are going to stay in this marriage, we need to figure this out. And through therapy, actually, we ended up finding out that my spouse had financial trauma because his parents constantly argued about money as a child. So to him, money just meant like bad times. Money was evil. It's just better to avoid it altogether. So even though he knew that it was important for me to move forward with our money goals, this little broken child inside him that was unhealed was keeping him from taking action, right? And thank goodness he was able to heal those money wounds. So that's something that might be at play too. It's important to kind of try counseling if that's available to you, or at least check out that book, Smart Couples Finish Rich. What do you think, Jamila?
I agree with that. I think it's not easy, like, to come together as, first of all, just in general, to live with someone, to combine lives together and finances, even if you're not completely combining it, but just like, it's not easy. And so I think it's one of those things where it depends on your spouse's or partner's personality. And, like, I noticed, like, my husband, his personality in a lot of things he does transfers to other areas of his life. He's very laid back. He likes things easy. So he's not as on top of or cares about, like, finances. Like, he cares. Obviously, he wants money and he wants to have nice things. But he's not as much of a planner as I am. And so, like, that translates to how he handles money. So we do look at and think about money differently. But what helped us is, getting on the same page with our goals. So I would say it is that sitting down and thinking through and talking about what each other's goals are. And it is actually okay to me to have individual goals. But I do think as a family, whether you have kids or not, just as a unit, like, there should be like a common goal. And so, like, that common goal to me should be very important and what you work towards, but then you don't forget about the individual one. So for the person who wrote in, what is it that your husband likes or values, even just materialistically, and how can that be fit into the budget? Maybe it's not something you do currently, but it's like, okay, we're going to work up towards that, or we're going to save towards doing that thing. And I think, Gigi, I love this, therapy and really getting to the root of maybe why it is that person is kind of avoiding and or self-sabotaging, like, things that you should be doing, and also a self-check. So this is one thing that's important, is that just because you're excited, because you listened to all the podcasts, read all the blogs, read the books, and you're ready to go all in, doesn't mean the other person has to, also. And so it is that, okay, am I going too hard? Like, is there a balance between me wanting to be super frugal or not do a lot versus they want to spend, and is there a middle ground so we both can enjoy this life that we've built together?
Absolutely. I think that can easily happen to a lot of people that have, again, their financial awakening, and they've done the work, but somebody else is on a different journey because they haven't done the work yet, right? So that's such a good point.
Yes. Okay, so the second question that came in is this. When my family members ask me to borrow money, is it okay if I charge interest and impose deadline dates for full repayment?
This question makes me laugh because I've done it myself and it did not work out well. I'm going to say that the answer depends. It's up to the individual and your family dynamic. I tried this approach with my family when I was asked to charge $7,000 on a credit card to pay for an emergency surgery for one of my family members. And I didn't feel comfortable just doing it willy-nilly, right? So I came up with the idea of, hey, let's draft up a contract that says you're going to pay this back in full. I didn't charge interest like the person that's asking the question. I actually did not charge interest, but I did say if you fail to make timely payments or if you completely default, I'm owed the title to your car because it would have been equal value to the $7,000. And putting those conditions on me lending out my credit line, it was like detonating a bomb within my family. And I was very much disowned and told I don't need your money with strings attached. And sure enough, she was able to get money very quickly from another family member who actually did charge her interest. So it's funny. She came to me because I have nobody else. And then the next day, somebody else helped her. So I would say it just kind of depends on your family best and how they would react to that. But if your family's anything like mine, it would not be a good idea. Think about when loaning out money, honestly, the best practice is just gifting it and gift as much as you can gift without, setting yourself back. Don't give more than you can afford, because if you really expect to get the money back, and you don't, it's only going to cause a strain in your relationship. And this is with somebody that you love, so you don't want to jeopardize your relationship with that person. So, and that's common advice in the financial industry, to just gift the money instead to the ability that you can.
I agree with that, Gigi. And it's so interesting that even just the presenting it as an option will piss the person off potentially. Oh, yeah. It's not even like it's in motion, they're paying it back and they're late, and so now there's a dispute like, hey, you didn't pay me back at this date that you said. It's like even me just bringing up the boundary and or the expectation that this is what's going to happen, which is why I think so many people avoid, like they say yes and they do things because they avoid that uncomfortable conversation up front. Like they don't want to, they rather like kick the bomb down the street, like the can down the street. They rather kick the bomb down the street and like, I'll deal with the explosion, like if things go wrong later, because I don't actually want to bring it up now because there's going to potentially be a big explosion. Yes.
That's people pleasing. Yeah, let's call it for what it is. Yeah, so no, you have to be able to stand your ground, right? And to be able to, again, be unliked and be misunderstood, but know that you're doing what's best for your finances. Because your finances matter too. It's not just about family all the time. You as an individual matter too.
Yes. Okay, Gigi, I want you to talk just a little bit about the book coming into the world. I know that was a lot of work. From the last episode, I knew that you were a planner just because you were on it with all the steps it took to bring a book into the world. But talk about Cultura Cash and now like the process. I know it's going to be a lot more than what you can say in like 5 minutes, but talk about that process and how it feels to finally have your book into the world.
Yeah, so I think this advice would be helpful for anybody that wants to write a book or launch any sort of big project like a podcast or a blog or an Instagram account about their passion. What was really helpful for me was hiring support, hiring accountability. So what that looked like for me was hiring a book coach that kept me motivated, help me come up with the writing plan, help me flesh out my outline so that I knew what I was going to write each day that I sat down to write. I know 100% that had I not had my book coach's support, I would have given up, because writing is a very isolating and a very emotional journey. There's a lot of self-doubt along the way, and a book coach is that cheerleader that's like, you can do this. And they've shepherded other people through it, right? So they're very familiar with the limiting mindsets and all that. Hiring a book coach is pricey, and the only reason I was able to afford it was because I won a $50,000 grant from TikTok to write this book. So I used a portion of that grant to pay my book coach. But there's other ways to get support. You can also work with a book coach in a group coaching program, which is usually much cheaper than working with them one-on-one. Sometimes they offer self-paced courses, which are even cheaper. You can read books. I read books about writing books. How funny, right? Or you can even get an accountability buddy, somebody that's on the same journey as you and is committed to making progress with their project. And that way you can keep each other motivated.
I love that. That's actually great tips. Now, I want to let you tell everyone where they can find the book. So Cultura Cash, where can they pick it up? And then I'm going to share how we are going to be, or Gigi is going to be giving away a few copies. So stay tuned.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes. So the book is called Cultura Cash. It was released on January 23rd. So it's available now at all major online retailers like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org. Although I do recommend that you request it from your local bookshop to support small business owners. You can actually access the full introduction to the book by visiting my website, culturaandcash.com, and you can get the full introduction chapter via PDF or an audio file to check out the book to see if it's kind of your jam before deciding to make that purchase decision. But yeah, I'm really proud of this work. Eva Longoria endorsed the book, which means a lot to me because I really look up to her. And it's my baby, and after a year and a half, it's finally out in the world, and I'm so happy to be able to share it with the journeyers today.
Yes, and we are also giving out, or Gigi is giving out 3 copies. So go to Journey to Launch. 3 signed copies, okay? So go to journeytolaunch.com/win. You'll see all the ways that you can win. You enter your information, and that will be going about, so it'll be a timely, or, it's going to be a week from this episode air date, so when you can enter. But just go to journeytolaunch.com/win to see all the chances you can win, and then also make sure you're on my email list because you'll get a chance to win a copy there too. journeytolaunch.com/win. I'll put all the links, so where you can get Gigi's book, her website, her Instagram. Can you say your Instagram and TikTok one more time for people?
Yeah, my Instagram is Gigi the First Gen Mentor, and TikTok is the First Gen Mentor. I also came up with a podcast. I keep forgetting to mention this. It's called Cultura Cash.
Forgot?
It's a continuation. It's a continuation of the book. So yeah, it's the same name, Cultura Cash. There's 7 episodes up, so check them out.
Okay, you can find that probably wherever you listen to this podcast. So I, again, will link all that in the show notes.